Hello, bookish friends. My name is Gail, and I am the Fiction Bookworm. I'm really excited to be back with you today. I have been sick for the past 10 days, and so it's taken me a little bit longer to get my next video recorded, but I am back, and I'm here to talk to you about my August wrap-up. I have a few things on board for today. One is a small book unboxing about some exciting things that I want to share with you. And I'll show you a video of that. And then I will share with you what I have read this month as an August wrap up. And so let's get going. So the first thing is something I'm really excited about. I couldn't wait until January to get this. It is a book journal called the Bookworm Life from a company called Peanut Butter Taco. And I learned about this a couple weeks ago and I was really excited. I decided I just couldn't wait to get it, so here it is. I ordered it earlier this week and I am going to be waiting until January to start this because I really want to make it part of my Goodreads plan and my Goodreads goals. So here you can see the journal, the Bookworm Life, and it's really cool. I've been watching videos about it and seeing people's pictures, and they look really good. I have to keep Nikita from eating the wrappings because he's going to try and do that, aren't you? So it's got a little plastic cover. Do not eat the book, buddy. It's got shelves to fill in, to mark the books you've read, blank pages. You've got goal setting. You can record your most anticipated books of the year. Each month you can write down titles that you are hoping to read that month. Then you've got a monthly planner. The one that I bought also has the option for a weekly planner, so these pages are meant to be filled out for a weekly planner. I don't know if I will do that or if I will use it to make lists and write things down, maybe use them for book challenges. There's a monthly wrap-up, and the text on there says books acquired, which I'm kind of excited about. I own way too many books, and I'm curious to see if I can keep myself accountable by writing down every book I buy, which I'm sure will probably not lessen if I'm booktubing, but who knows. So that's the structure of the journal. I am really, really excited to start using it. All right, and then I want to show you the other book box that I got today. So one of my book haul items that you can see here is my Once Upon a Book Club box. This is a book box subscription service that I've been subscribing to for about a year and a half, and I really enjoy it. They do gifts that are in theme with the actual book that you're reading. So you'll read to a certain page and there will be a gift for you to open on that page that's somehow related to the story. So I'll open it up and show you. This is the July box, which I'm able to show you the title, and I'm also going to briefly show you the gifts as I open them so you can get an idea of what this book box is like. It's a really fun one. And I'll have a link to a discount code that you'll see down below. So the July book is called The Long Flight Home, and it is a World War II story about two people in England, and they are working with carrier pigeons who send messages back and forth. So that's about all that I know about the book. So I'm looking forward to reading it and giving you the updates. And you can see here already, I can see here is one of the things to open. That's from page 345. So I'm really excited about that. This is going to be one of those gifts that makes the story come alive because it's something from the story. And here's my assistant Nikki helping out. I'll show you a little bit about how the gifts work. So this is when Ollie is flying his crop dusting plane, and he says that he has, as he's flying around, there's a little girl who likes to watch him fly and do tricks. And so he wants to send her a thank you note. So he says, as he swooped by the cottage, he reached into his jacket and pulled out a note that was tied to a small piece of wood. He released the package. It fell gently to the grass, clearing several yards from the shore. It fell gently to a grass clearing several yards from the shoreline. The girl ran to the package, untied the string, and read the note. So they give us a little gift that represents that particular package with a stick wrapped inside of a note that he dropped to the ground. And so you can see how the gift comes out with the note, and then inside there's this little pen that looks like looks like a stick. Another example of a gift from the book is the one that they gave us a little bit later, and this is just a simple reference to Bernie's. Bertie is the grandfather and his hurt knees, and it says his kneecaps were red and the size of melons. He grimaced as the towels touched his skin. So his granddaughter put some cold towels on his knee, and so the gift you can see is this special little towel that is supposed to stay cold extra long, and you can use it as sort of something to help cool your skin. So it's kind of an interesting little gift. So sometimes the gifts are like things that come out of the story and are directly described. Sometimes it's something that's mentioned just briefly, but it's a practical thing that you could use all the time in your life. So it's fun. So overall, it wasn't a really great reading month for me. I was hoping to do a little bit better. You can see here on my August to read list, I have 7 titles listed. I only finished 5 of them. 2 of them I'm still reading. One I may end up DNFing, I'm not sure yet. I'm going to give it 3 more days before I decide to just not read it at all. So the books that I have finished are The Book of Life by Deborah Harkness. So I've already talked about The Book of Life a bit in my previous video. I really enjoyed the series. I thought that The Book of Life was a great ending to the series. And I'm glad that we haven't left these characters forever, because there's already 1 book set in the world that has come out, and I know that there will be more. So I'm really excited to read more about this. I do recommend The Book of Life if you haven't read it. It involves witches and vampires and demons in a world where all of these creatures exist with humans. This book really tells more about sort of the background and mythology of the world than any of the previous books, which is why I think it's probably my favorite. I think as you read this series, you have a lot of questions, and this book really does a good job of answering them. So I love this book. I give it 5 stars, and I hope you pick up the All Souls trilogy, starting with The Discovery of Witches, and read them as well. So the next book that I finished this month was a book called The State of Lies by Siri Mitchell, and this is a suspense novel set in Washington, D.C. It's kind of, I would say, sort of contemporary, but not really a time when we have named politicians. So there's political intrigue, definitely, but it's not really specific to any political party or any particular politician. The political intrigue is slightly lower than the level of president, but it does get actually pretty high into the politics in Washington, D.C. And it's about a woman whose husband dies, and she just kind of gets on with life. The book is set sort of a little bit before his death, so you get a picture of what their family life was like. They have a son, and they were very happy. Her father is in the military. He's a general in the army, and so she has a lot of political connections, both with her husband's job. He, I think, had worked for the CIA or the FBI, or no, I think he was at the Pentagon. And yeah, he was definitely at the Pentagon. Her father is a general high up in the Army, and she herself worked as a contractor to the FBI. So they're all involved in all of the Washington stuff. And so 8 months after his death, she starts to figure some things out, and she starts to be suspicious that people are watching her and trying to find information maybe that's hidden in the house. And so she starts to investigate and figure out, like, okay, what was her husband working on when he died? He was supposedly died in a car crash. And then she starts to question if that really happened, or what that happened, or if it was really as innocent as it appeared. Maybe it was a deliberate death instead of an accident. So there's a lot of mystery and intrigue, and you don't really know what's going on. So she's trying to piece together what happened, and then she starts interviewing people, and more people die. So there's definitely something going on. So I thought it was a great suspense. I like to read suspense. I don't read as much of that as I used to, so it's been really fun occasionally going back into a book like that. My one complaint about the book was that the chapters were very, very short. It was kind of like the Dan Brown style of writing with really short chapters, and that's just not my favorite. But other than that, I love the book. I gave it 4 stars, which is still really high, I would say, for me. And so I would highly recommend it. The next book I finished this month was The Winemaker's Wife. This is something I also talked about in my previous video, and it is a World War II historical fiction, but it also has connections to the modern day. So there are basically 3 women who are being followed as point of view characters. 2 of them are in World War II. They are women who actually live on the same vineyard. One is the vintner's wife, and one is the wife of like the top employee. So there's a little bit of friendship there, a little bit of rivalry there. One is Jewish and one is not. And then one kind of collaborates with the Germans a little bit, or at least doesn't think that's a bad thing. She's French, and she doesn't quite see the seriousness of the situation in the same way the Jewish woman does. And then there is a modern day granddaughter, but we don't really know granddaughter of which woman, and we don't really know for sure that they're connected, but you can kind of figure out that they probably are, because she's spending time with her grandmother, and her grandmother says we have to go back to France, and so they go to France, and so you figure, okay, this woman is connected with this family and this vineyard story, but you don't know which woman the grandmother really is, because the names don't match. And so there's a story there, and there's some intrigue there. And so it was really good. I really liked the intrigue part of the modern day story that rotates in every 3 chapters. And I really enjoyed the World War II part being set on a vineyard. It reminded me a lot of Anne Ma's The Lost Vintage. They have a very similar feel, and they're both these kind of dual timelines with a modern story and a World War II story. And but The Lost Vintage is like mostly modern with a sort of flashback to the past, whereas this one is mostly World War II story with just occasional flashes to the future. So I definitely recommend The Winemaker's Wife. I would give it 5 stars. It was definitely one of my favorite books of this year. And I'm really excited about reading more by Kristen Harmel. In fact, I went on Book Outlet and bought 2 of her previous books just because I love The Winemaker's Wife so much. So I highly recommend The Winemaker's Wife. The next book that I finished was called Tidelands by Philippa Gregory. And this is a book that is set in the 1600s. And Philippa Gregory is well known for sort of her royal series, including The Other Boleyn, The White Queen, The White Princess, These have been made into movies. There's a series on Stars called The White Queen, The White Princess, The Spanish Princess, based on her books. So she's quite well known for these royal stories. And this is not a royal story. So this is the start of a series that she wrote because she wanted to write a series kind of based on what her ancestors or any of our ancestors are like. You know, our ancestors for the most part were the common people, the people who were just kind of trying to survive and trying to get ahead, trying to become middle class, you know, trying to make their lives better. And so that's what this series is about. And it's about a woman named Eleanor, and she is a very poor woman. She, her husband has left her. She has two fairly grown-up kids. They're teenagers, but in that time they were, you know, almost considered to be ready to sort of go off on their own. And so she is just trying to get by. She, you know, is really poor, and she does a lot of different things just to get by. She's a midwife as well. She has knowledge of herbs and how they heal people. And so this is also a time when the Puritans were in charge. The king had been arrested. King Charles I had been arrested and was living in exile. Actually not exile, imprisonment on the Isle of Wight. And Parliament and Oliver Cromwell are in charge. And so the people in the village where Eleanor lives are all now, I mean, like the Puritan religion is now the state religion. And so they are, of course, all Puritans. A lot of them are kind of sincere about that. And kind of what goes along with some of the legalism of Puritanism is this fear of witches. And so like a sub-theme of the book is that kind of overhangs and overshadows the whole story is what if someone is a witch? And so Eleanor, being a woman who has knowledge of healing, and also the daughter of a woman who had knowledge of healing, and the granddaughter of a woman who had knowledge of healing and who maybe even used the dark arts, is someone who is quite often suspected of being a witch. In fact, her husband, who left her, kind of also perpetuated these rumors that Eleanor is a witch. You know, he calls his own children fairy children, and says, they're really not my children, she got them from a fairy. And so all of this kind of hangs over, and Eleanor's just trying to survive. And she gets caught up in some of the events that are going on. The local landowner, sort of the aristocracy in the area, is the Peachy family. They are Catholic, and they're actually still secretly Catholic. They have a priest who secretly comes to visit them. And he goes by the name James Summer. He's another POV character in the story. And pretty early on, James falls in love with Eleanor. And so there's kind of this storyline of these two people who are in different classes. And one being a priest, they can't really be together. And so there's a lot going on in the story. It has a very slow pace. It's not a fast-paced novel, but it's just kind of like unplugging and going to the 16th century. I really liked it. I felt like there was enough tension in the story that it kept me reading, even though there wasn't a lot of action. I would say it's probably a 4-star for me, but I liked it better than I've liked a number of Philippa Gregory's more recent books that I've read about the kings and queens. So I'm really excited about the direction that she's taken in her writing, and I'm really, really excited about this series. So if you like historical fiction, definitely pick up The Tidelands by Philippa Gregory. And the last book I read this month was for my face-to-face book club, and that is called Made by Stephanie Land. And she, it's a memoir. So she is a woman who had gone through a series of difficult events in her life that led her to, and that ends her up in a homeless shelter. So basically what happens is she hasn't always made the best choices. She was going to go back to college, and then I think she met a guy, and then she didn't, and then she got pregnant, and so she has a baby, and he becomes abusive. So she leaves him when she's got this little baby, and so she ends up in a homeless shelter. So the book starts when she is about ready to leave the homeless shelter and kind of go on her own. And so she ends up with a career as a maid, and that's how she's trying to fight to get herself and her daughter out of poverty, because they really don't have a lot. They have pretty much nothing going into the situation. And she comes from a family where they also don't have a lot of money, so they can't bail her out, they can't help her. She's just kind of on her own, trying to make a better life for herself and her daughter. So part of the structure of the book is, as she's cleaning houses, she talks about the houses that she's cleaning. She gives each of the houses a name. So like there's the sad house, and there's the porno house, and there's the happy house. So she kind of looks at these houses and sees, you know, she can tell a lot about the people who live there based on what she sees in the house. You know, like she can tell how happy they are or how sad they are or lonely. And so she talks about their lives through the things that she sees when they're not there, but also how that sometimes affected her own life and how she was living and the choices that she made. And it's also kind of a diary of how she was able to finally kind of break this poverty hold on her, and really take a huge risk and try to get herself out of poverty. So I really enjoyed it. I think it's really good. I know the main criticism I've seen of it is that she sounds a bit whiny. And I think that sometimes she works really hard at getting her point across as to how difficult it is to be poor in this country. And so I think some people interpret that as being whiny. But overall, I thought it was a really good book. And I also really encourage you to read that. I would say that this is definitely a 4-star book for me, maybe even 4.5 star. I thought it was really good, and it was really interesting in my group. You know, we just had really good discussions around the things that she talked about in this book. So it's a great book for a book discussion, a book group as well. And so that's made by Stephanie Land. So I think I've probably talked long enough about the books that I've read this month. I hope to do a short, just a short time from now, post a look ahead to September and what I hope to read. And so I will see all of you soon. So let me know if you've read any of the books that I've read and what you thought of them, or if they've inspired you to read as well. Until next time, I hope that you enjoy reading.